Moscow, Russia, August 21, 2025. The Kremlin has issued one of its starkest warnings in recent months as Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov declared that the presence of European troops on Ukrainian soil would be absolutely unacceptable. Speaking at a press briefing in Moscow, Lavrov described Western efforts to provide Ukraine with long-term security guarantees as little more than a cover for foreign intervention. His words added fuel to already high tensions between Russia and the West. Responding to a journalist's question, Lavrov said plainly that security guarantees under discussion in Western capitals amount to a promise of direct military involvement in Ukraine. In his words, all these plans are essentially about providing guarantees for intervention, foreign military intervention in some part of Ukrainian territory. Lavrov's statement comes as NATO members and Ukraine continue talks about potential long-term frameworks for Kyiv's defence, including air defence systems, intelligence sharing and the possible deployment of European forces. Lavrov did not stop there. He stressed that Moscow views such moves as a deliberate escalation. "I hope strongly," he said, "that those who are entertaining such plans, whether they are simply trying to attract attention or not, understand what the consequences will be." His words carried the unmistakable tone of a warning, hinting at a wider confrontation if European troops were ever stationed in Ukraine. This is not the first time Russia has issued threats over Western involvement in Ukraine. Since the full-scale invasion began in 2022, Moscow has repeatedly framed NATO's support for Kyiv as proxy participation in the war. From weapons deliveries to training Ukrainian soldiers, the Kremlin has argued that Western actions undermine any chance of peace and extend the conflict indefinitely. Today's remarks by Lavrov, however, took that narrative a step further by targeting the very notion of European boots on the ground. In Kyiv, Western guarantees are seen as essential for survival. Ukrainian officials argue that only firm commitments from NATO and European partners can deter further Russian aggression. Discussions have ranged from integrating Ukraine into Western defence structures to formal bilateral agreements on military aid. But for Moscow, these talks cross a red line. Lavrov's warning was as much aimed at European capitals as at Kyiv itself, signalling that any step toward deploying troops would be met with resistance. The political context is equally important. Former US President Donald Trump has promised air support for Ukraine but ruled out American ground forces. European governments, however, have debated limited deployments, not for combat but for training and security operations. For Russia, though, such distinctions matter little. Any foreign military presence in Ukraine is described as an invasion in disguise. Lavrov framed the debate in stark terms, not as security guarantees, but as foreign occupation. Western analysts interpret Lavrov's comments as both a warning and a negotiating tactic. By threatening consequences, Moscow is attempting to deter NATO members from even considering long-term basing of troops in Ukraine. The ambiguity over what those consequences might be, military escalation, political retaliation, or economic pressure, is designed to keep Western policymakers cautious. Yet for Kyiv and its allies, the message underscores the fragile balance they must maintain, providing Ukraine enough support to resist Russia without provoking direct confrontation. The timing of Lavrov's remarks also matters. They came just as European diplomats were finalising proposals for a new security framework for Ukraine, one that would guarantee sustained military, economic and intelligence support well into the next decade. The proposals are meant to reassure Kyiv that the West will not abandon it, even as questions remain about NATO's ability to extend full membership to Ukraine anytime soon. Lavrov's intervention, therefore, is seen as a preemptive strike against those negotiations. Lavrov's words also reflect a broader Russian strategy to paint NATO as the aggressor and portray Ukraine as a victim of Western manipulation. By calling security guarantees a form of foreign intervention, Moscow seeks to frame the entire debate as illegitimate. It is a narrative Russia has pushed consistently, both domestically and internationally, in an attempt to erode Western unity. Today's briefing was another chapter in that ongoing information war. As the briefing concluded, Lavrov's message was clear. Any step toward European military presence in Ukraine would cross a line Moscow is unwilling to tolerate. Whether this warning deters NATO's ongoing discussions or hardens Western resolve remains to be seen. What is certain is that the contest over Ukraine's security is not just a regional issue, but a defining struggle in the future of European security itself. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says any presence of European troops in Ukraine would be absolutely unacceptable, as Kyiv's allies worked on security guarantees for the country. I hope strongly that those who are entertaining such plans understand what the consequences will be, Lavrov says in response to a journalist's question about security guarantees for Ukraine, calling them foreign intervention in some part of Ukrainian territory.
Но надеюсь, что они понимают, что это будет абсолютно неприемлемо для Российской Федерации и для всех здравомыслящих политических сил в Европе.